Dear Lizzie, happy Thursday. It's Ptony, your friendly Catholic vlogger. And I am so excited that you're becoming Catholic. On behalf of myself and everyone here on my channel, I just want to welcome you to the church. I'm really bad at gushy language, but insert a bunch of that here. I'm so excited. Your videos in these past 2 weeks have been so good. I expect it's been a whirlwind for you, perhaps. Hopefully not too overwhelming. I send prayers. You've given me a lot to ponder in your last videos, especially in your Why I'm Becoming Catholic video. You talked about how you didn't like the vibe of Catholicism, and I wasn't exactly sure what you meant by that. But I began to ask myself, well, what kind of vibe do I help create within my circles of the Catholic world? And I began pondering that in some pretty concrete ways. Like I thought about, sometimes I'll get in arguments with other Catholics about what's the liturgy supposed to look like, or how Catholic is the charismatic movement really, or what did Pope Francis mean by the last thing that he said? And from there I began thinking about how, well, I mean, I don't think that we should stop talking about these things, right? They're important questions, but also how do I talk about these things with other people? Do I corner people? Do I actually learn do I have constructive conversations? And that gets into nuanced reflections about dialogue versus fighting and things like that. That particular line of thought, I don't think it actually had anything to do with what you meant by vibe of Catholicism. It was a good tangent to think about, and you prompted that tangent for me, so thank you for that. That was nice. But that little phrase, vibe of Catholicism, stuck with me, and I started thinking about it in different ways. And eventually I began wondering, what do Catholics look like to Protestants? And as part of that question, what kind of vibe do we give off? I went way down the rabbit hole thinking about that. I wrote like 3 pages of notes, was just getting warmed up to make a whole response video and ask you about some of these things because I thought this was fascinating and wanted to hear what you meant by vibe of Catholicism. And then you uploaded a second video that answered a lot of that already. But holy cow, that was a fantastic video. Your coming home video, part 2 of coming into the faith, your story. Wow, I loved that. You talked about a lot of different aspects in your journey, and one of those dynamics, of course, was your perspective of Catholicism, and that was just an amazing theme to hear, and you wove it into your story throughout the whole video. Thank you, that was incredible. In my ponderings, I remember thinking, when I talk to Protestants, which honest to goodness is not very often, but regardless, when I talk to Protestants, if something in faith and morals comes up where we are going to disagree, I tend to have one of 2 reactions. 1, try to convince the Protestant that they're wrong, and 2, change the subject because I want to avoid confrontation. It makes me uncomfortable. But if that's the case, that means that whenever it comes to matters where we disagree, the only thing that Protestants will ever hear from me is me trying to prove them wrong. And that seems kind of awful. From there, I got more cynical and I thought, if all Catholics act this way, and I assumed that basically all Catholics do, that's kind of an awful situation gone rampant. But when I watched your video, you talked about how you had wonderful experiences with the Catholics that reached out to you. They sent prayers, they offered you encouragement, and I also found it interesting that you talked about how you were thankful for how they sent you articles to read, for how they went toe-to-toe with you about different things you talked about. They gave you arguments for Catholic doctrine. They talked to you about things where y'all weren't on the same page. And that was mind-opening for me, because every instinct inside me screams that if I don't agree with someone, they don't want to hear my opinion. And vice versa, if someone doesn't agree with me, I don't want to hear their opinion. But obviously, it doesn't have to be that way. So I just want to say thank you for your videos. They gave me so much food for thought. They also were a brilliant example of looking deep into things and searching for truth, and being brave enough to talk to people even when we don't agree with them. Thank you also for building up such an amazing community where that sort of conversation is possible. And also thank you to your viewers for their great example of having great conversations and living out charity. You've built up a beautiful YouTube channel, and I'm really excited to see what videos you make in the future. And that's what I wanted to say today. All right, I'll see you in your next video. God bless and ciao. Everybody, if you haven't seen Lizzie's videos about why she's becoming Catholic and her whole journey, I highly recommend it. I'm putting links down in the description because those were some of the most amazing videos I've seen in a long time. And I have high standards, thank you very much. So you know they're good. The first one is only 15 minutes long. That's really easy. Everybody has time for that. The second one is 45 minutes long, and when I saw that, I was scared to watch it because... but it's worth it. If 45 minutes seems really daunting to you, just click on the video. And if at some point during the video you decide you want to click away, go ahead, click away. But I kind of expect you won't because wow, she really carries you through the whole video. And it's fascinating. All right, that's all I got.